Angel Reese just called out the hate. And now the WNBA is officially on the case. Okay, on Saturday, we've talked a lot about this. On Saturday's matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever, fans and players say that they could hear racial comments being directed towards Angel Reese. And those comments included monkey noises. Now, the league is investigating. They're in the midst of an active investigation. They've even issued a statement that some say doesn't go far enough. I'll just say that. But today, Reese said, I think that WNBA and our team have done a great job supporting me. It's tough, but my support system is strong, and I am loved by so many. Shout out to her for that statement. The Sky and the Fever are going to face each other 3 more times this season, so expect fireworks. And to make matters worse, the men have jumped in. Men, I'm glad you're covering this sport. I'm glad women's basketball is getting the coverage it deserves. I just want us to have some, I don't know, sometimes I feel we major in the minor, as I say. I'm not talking about women, I'm talking about men, particularly men who work at these networks, the execs, but we'll talk about that another time. ESPN's Ryan Clark lit RG3 up. I'm talking about Robert Griffin III, sort of a bust out of the Washington Redskins as being considered an extraordinary college player. But anyway, he called out Griffin for critiquing Reese while being married to a white woman. I want you to hear what Ryan said, but first I want you to hear what RG3 said, because obviously that's the key. Check this out. This is in response to the foul and all the stuff we saw the other night. Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark. It's staring us all right in the face, but people are afraid to say it. Won't answer questions about Caitlin Clark. Gets mad when people praise Caitlin Clark for the explosion of popularity around women's basketball. Celebrates when her teammates flagrantly foul Caitlin Clark. Goes after and tries to punch Caitlin Clark after a routine make 'em earn it foul after Angel Reese fouled Aaliyah Boston with a push in the back that was not called. That's not just hate. That's jealousy and resentment. And he goes on and on. RG3 is making me yawn. But he goes on and on to break down this whole case for how Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, which I think is problematic language to use. I think it's unfair as well, but I think it's deeply problematic language. And it reiterates this idea of almost irrationality, uncontrollable emotion, violence to Black women that I don't think is necessary. And Ryan Clark was basically saying, yo, this critique is too far. But he didn't just say the critique was too far. He said, look, Robert, you don't have a Black woman at home, and so you don't have these conversations. He said, in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women. You can't speak on what Black women deal with. Basically saying that RG3 is incapable, unqualified even, to talk about these things. But that's just my silly take. But what I want to do is have you all actually hear what Ryan Clark said and then draw your own conclusions. That way, you don't got to listen to silly me.
One another. RG3 called what Angel Reese did hate. He said you could see the hate on her face for Caitlin Clark. I'm not really sure when we moved in to being able to read the expressions of a person and know their intent. He does understand hate, because I think he also understands the hate of self. When you look at the play, which is all we can speak to as professionals, Angel Reese pushed one of her teammates. Caitlin Clark had a hard foul, which is part of basketball. I feel like it was assessed correctly. And Angel Reese's reaction is the sort of reaction you get in a situation when you feel like you took an intentionally hard foul. And so now, though, when RG3 jumps on to the hate train or to the angry train, and now follows along with what we saw from Keith Olbermann, what we saw from Dave Portnoy, as they poured on to Angel Reese to make her the villain in Caitlin Clark's heroic or hero story. Right. The one thing we know about RG3 is he's not having conversations at his home about what Black women have to endure in this country, about what young Black women and athletes like Angel Reese have had to deal with being on the opposite side of Caitlin Clark's rise and ascension into stardom. You haven't been able to do that because in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women. And the whole time that he's mimicking Angel Reese and bobbing his head and moving his neck while he's doing this whole piece, his wife is in the back amening and clapping. And so to me, it's just another situation that now this young lady has to deal with.
So what a fascinating take. Now, I have thoughts on it. I have serious thoughts about this. First, I think that there's a way that RG3 absolutely is reaching too far in his criticism or assessment of Angel Reese. Angel Reese, I don't know if she hates Caitlin Clark or not. I don't think she does. But even if she did, we don't have the evidence to support it. So I think RG3 is overreaching there. I think, again, by making it sound like she's just obsessed with it, makes Caitlin Clark the center of attention. It makes Caitlin Clark the object of desire. It makes Angel Reese the jealous, irrational, bitter Black woman. It plays into all these tropes. And like he said, you're over there snapping your neck, rolling your eyes, sort of mimicking Angel Reese in ways that play into stereotypes. All of it is a problem. I happen to agree that Angel Reese overreacted on that foul. But a lot of people overreact on fouls, right? NBA players overreact on fouls all the time. And Angel Reese does need to be accountable for the fact that she just put Aaliyah Boston on the play before, if you saw the game. So, again, I think Angel overreacted, but I think that's just what players do. Every player in all the pro leagues now act like they got shot every time they take a foul. I don't think Caitlin pushed her particularly hard either. I think that was a flop. But all that was standing, people have a right to be frustrated in a basketball game. So let's not demonize Angel Reese for that. However, what RG3 is doing is just so much further than that. And so when Ryan Clark is saying, look, you're not just criticizing her, you're attacking her, and it's coming from a bad place. And he makes a hell of a case for RG3 and his own obsession, allegedly, with whiteness. He's saying, you make fun of, you used to walk around the street telling someone how you love milk, i.e. you love whiteness and white women. Both of your wives have been white. You know, you play in the anti-Black stereotypes all the time on your social media. I mean, these are all legitimate talking points, points of critique of RG3. I get that. At the same time, there's a way that bringing up who he's married to and that he comes home to a white woman feels like a cheap shot. It feels excessive. It feels unnecessary. Not because there's not a legitimate critique about Black men who marry white women, but because his point could have been made without getting into what RG3 does at home, because it's also oversimplifying things. You could be married to a white woman and have Black sisters, Black friends, Black mama, all the things that will give you insight into how to think about Black women and girls and femmes. And I'm not defending RG3. Again, I think RG3 does cornball shit, and I think he does obsess about whiteness, and I think he does side with whiteness against his own people all the time. I think he exploits his white wife in the videos, and they exploit each other, I should say. You know, I mean, even with the how to get a better booty, how to get white women with booty stuff, all that is bullshit, and it plays into a bunch of racial stereotypes that are anti-Black and anti-Black women and misogynoirist. So I agree with all of that. RG3 uses family as a prop sometimes. At least it looks that way to me as a fan, me as a viewer. So I get all of that. I think it cheapened Ryan's argument because it allowed for a distraction, allowed people to ignore the actual point he was making and focus on something else. And RG3, in case you didn't know, as you would imagine, did not like what happened. He basically was like, Ryan crossed the line, that there are things you can do, things you should do, and things you shouldn't do. And on his Twitter or X account, he goes in all about, I gave first of all, this is pinned to his account. This line you don't cross in life, and Ryan Clark sprinted past it. And he goes on to make it seem like he was making a basketball analysis, and it didn't get personal until Ryan Clark made it personal by mentioning his family. Now, I think Ryan Clark made a more nuanced point about the family. He said, look, you're the one making your white wife, an object. I think she's more than that. You're the one bragging about, so he wasn't doing the thing that people are accusing him of doing, but there is a legitimate question about whether it needed to happen. Anyway, they're both weighing in on him. I happen to have a kind of final analysis of it, which I'll give you, but I want to just be very clear about what Ryan Clark said. He said these black men, like, RG3, they always feel like they got to go the extra mile to prop up the women they're with by tearing down black women. And RG3 says just because Angel Reese is black doesn't mean you can't critique her game. But it wasn't just the game. You start talking about her having a kind of obsession or a hatred for Caitlin Clark. You were assigning things to her character and her personality that are non-basketball. And you got to be honest about that. Otherwise, it's a disingenuous argument, RG3. So I think it's a complicated conversation that we're oversimplifying it. And it's just like, oh, Ryan Clark brought up this man's wife. He didn't. Not in the way that y'all saying. But it's also like, you can never bring up somebody's wife, because that also seems unreasonable, particularly in the context that we're talking in. So I have some critiques of Angel Reese's behavior on Saturday, but I'm not dying on that hill. I have bigger critiques about how it's being talked about by us as a media, and that's the thing that I want us to continue to unpack over time.